Hello! Welcome back to the PlayStation Library. Grab your decoder rings, we're going on a mathematical adventure. So Kart World Series is an F1 racing game straight from Sony. Among its good deeds just happens to be one of my favorite adventures in the past year, and I don't mean the game itself. Kart World Series has been hiding a message deep within its code that was never meant to be seen by the casual gamer. It never appears in game, and the only way to know what it said requires some programming knowledge. To get where we need to be, we need to actually go back in time a year earlier to Rallycross's release day. You see, tearing into a game's code is a time-honored tradition. For those who want to play it, for those who want to master it, and those who want to tear wide open with cheat codes. The easiest way for the latter to get those codes is using a Game Shark, and the first thing you do with a game that has passwords is you dive into the hex editor. Imagine the shock to the hacking community when they realized all they had to do to break open Rallycross was to just press the Game Shark's menu button. Once hex editor was chosen, literally right at the very first line of code were the first two password cheats. All they had to do was scroll a bit further down and they would find the rest of the passcodes. The game hadn't been on the market for a week, and most of its secrets had already been laid bare. Time passes, and Sony continues their crazy release schedule. The fine folks behind Rallycross would be put in charge of the first-party offering of Kart World Series. Well, imagine the surprise of would-be hackers when Kart hits the marketplace and a whole new discovery is made. Scrolling through a wall of text in programming notes is a plain text message from one of the programmers. In full, it reads, "Snooping around in the executable, I see. Looking for codes? Well, after the Rallycross experience, they are now encrypted. Ha! If you can decrypt them, you will find a secret message. Enjoy Kart World Series, and get Rallycross if you haven't already, and watch for our next game." If there is one thing I have learned over the years, you never, ever give a hacker a challenge, because they'll come through. Even if it requires just a little help. That's where Hybrid from the website I Am Air comes in once again. After a false start on my part, which we'll get into later, we began the hunt for the message. The first problem is that we didn't know what we were looking for. Was it visible in the game? Was it a reward? Maybe accessible via code? Was it even there in the hex editor? Imagine having a treasure with no map to get to it. Starting from scratch, the most likely place I had to be was here in the hex editor. I mean, the programmer already taunted us with the passwords being encrypted, so more than likely the message is encrypted. But encrypted how? Sorting through a hex editor can be a chore, wading through all the programmer's notes and asset file paths that one can read, on top of weaving in and out of all the matrix-like gibberish. But if you bring along a buddy who reads through all of it, sometimes you get really lucky. Which brings us to the memory address line of 47,900. Remember how I said that my cool friend Hybrid can quote-unquote read the room? Well, here's where things get interesting. In a hex editor, the numbers you are looking at have been translated into machine language. That is, it's in a format that the PlayStation can understand. The machine language is how practically every computer you have ever used runs programs, does its computations, literally everything. This language can be reduced to binary code back and forth, which is generated using only ones and zeros. For example, let's say I have the word play, capital P and then lowercase lay. Every letter in the word can be reduced to their binary equivalents. The capital P becomes 0101000 in binary, and then the number 50 in hex. So if we're looking for the whole word in hex, we would want 50 6C 6179. If you haven't realized the problem yet, it's that in a hex editor, the hex values on the left will be correctly visible on the right. All we have here is a bunch of gibberish, and oddly enough, the number 3, which may be the clue we're looking for. The number 3 in hex is unironically 33, meaning it's the same forward as it is backwards. If we convert it to binary, it becomes 00110011. Like magic, if you swap each bit pair with its twin, it still remains the same. Let's dig in deeper. Hybrid observed that this chunk of gibberish features something its surrounding neighbors are missing: a whole lot of the number 10. Unlike the double Z's scattered about, which read as actual empty spaces, the 10 value here is acting like an intentional space you would type in a document. So if the 10s are intentionally spacing out other content, we might be on the right path. Now the real wizardry begins. Let's extract our little section of hex values and isolate it for easier viewing. Now that we have a much more friendly vista, we can mark off the spaces, essentially turning this hex data into a Wheel of Fortune-like puzzle. Our problem now lies with the gibberish. This could be anything, if it weren't for the unintentional clue left by the number 3. Let's take a value that appears quite often, B8. In its current state, it just comes up as gibberish. However, let's convert to binary, getting a value of 1011 1000, a number that doesn't even appear in our handy-dandy list. Except if we reference the 3's clues. This binary number would not be the same if we flipped the even and odd digits. So if we make it 0111 0100 and then convert that binary back into hex, you get the number 74, which in hex is actually the value for a lowercase letter t. Well, ain't that a nifty surprise? Now, if we continue our game show mindset, there's one thing you always look for during Wheel of Fortune.
Repeated words, predictable words.
So let's assume that the 3-letter word is most likely the. So if we solve for the third value, sure enough, we can buy a vowel by getting the lowercase e. Now that we know we found our hidden message, let's speed up the process and reveal the prize. Yep, it's a commercial, but a cheeky one at that. So, in full disclosure, this episode was a bit embellished for the sake of suspense and entertainment. That false trail of breadcrumbs I mentioned earlier is what started a crazy adventure to find the original programmers. When I originally found the challenge, I also discovered a curiosity I didn't notice the first time I'd fired up Kart World Series with the Game Shark involved. In the menu system, random letters would suddenly blink in driver bios, track times, eventually leading to this set of blinking curiosities. When I had finally tracked down programmer Jim Buck, he gently let me down, saying that they never programmed the game to do that. It was simply a rendering issue with the Game Shark attached. He did, however, fill us in on all the details of how the message was hidden and what it said. We simply took that and used it to track down the actual location in memory. He also admitted that the rest of the gibberish underneath where the message was hidden was probably the cheat passwords, as they were encrypted in the same way. It turns out the message was a response to finding out he and the rest of his team would be carrying on Twisted Metal's legacy just as they were finishing up Kart World Series. Per Jim, since we had shortly before shipping Kart found out we were going to be the team to work on the next Twisted Metal game due to the falling out between SingleTrack and Sony and the impending Vigilant 8 game that was a threat to Sony's franchise, thus necessitating finding a team quickly, I put in some smack-talking hidden message since I was young and dumb and fun. Very boring, cheesy, in retrospect, but I was super jazzed that I was going to work on the franchise. No worries there, Jim. I'd have been running in the streets announcing to every passerby I could. Would it surprise you that all of this chaos started, and I am not joking, the day after I finished the NBA Jam Extreme Code Chaos? I picked Kart at complete random off the shelf, turned on the Game Shark's hex editor, and just laughed my ass off. If there's one thing the universe is good at, it's getting me knee-deep in trouble. On behalf of Hybrid and myself, we want to thank Jim Buck for his quick, friendly, and absolutely amazing email responses for helping close out another part of the PlayStation lore. You can continue to enjoy his work to this day, as he's had a hand in games like Bit Trip and more. Check him out at his website, twitchythumbs.com, for more details on his portfolio of work. And that's it for the library this episode, guys. Stay tuned for more, insert the usual YouTube button pressing requests here, and always remember, I am here when you need me. Stay safe.